Jacob, welcome to the podcast.
Hi,
Hi, I'm
thank
so
you.
glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you too.
Thank you. So, Jacob and I met when he reached out to me and sent a comment for the podcast. So, letting the listeners know that's a great way to reach me and get on my radar. And your work is dynamic and fascinating.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's start out with your story and where you've been and where you are today on a practical level regarding having the time to make your art.
Well, as long as I can remember, I remember painting and drawing, or mostly drawing. And my mom, when she was in college, she would bring home these boxes of paper that, because back then they didn't have computers, they had typewriters. That was the computer. And she brought home these papers that they connect and you rip off the sides. And, so as soon as she pulled the paper out, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I can just keep drawing with my crayons. And I just kept stretching that paper out. And yeah, it's been about 6 years that I actually took it on a more serious kind of thing.
Okay.
At least how it all developed, and it developed first in my mind, like the thought of becoming an artist. And because I knew I love this thing that I do, and and it's still a discovery process. So I'm still kind of learning as I go. I'm taking these baby steps toward a greater picture, a greater success story. And it started off, I think, you find yourself in like these jobs that you don't like and things like that. I, um, and I kept quitting or getting fired or, and I was like, man, like nothing's working. I wonder why. And well, it clicked because I'm not putting me into it. So, I thought to myself, I said, well, I have a son, he's 10. And at the time he was just a baby, but I was like, man, I want to be an artist, but I have the responsibility of being a dad too. And I want to be practical about it. So I got with my dad and I said, I was homeless at the time. And I said, Dad, would you watch Thalo for a year so I can go over the road? And I would find a permanent location for me to be in, because Florida wasn't really working out, and that's where I lived. And I wanted just to start over. I wanted a new, fresh start somewhere where I can be, me, and my creative journey would begin there, wherever it is. And anyways, he said he agreed, and I saved my money up, and I lived in the truck, and I would park in like empty parking lots down south. They had a grocery store called Winn-Dixie. I would park behind Winn-Dixie, and I would sleep in my truck, and I would sketch in night, in the morning, and just dream about this life that has yet to happen. And in that sketching and in that drawing process, these thoughts became more than just like, oh, I hope it happens. It actually like gave me the voice to like actually like put my feet forward toward it. And I think becoming the truck driver and having that experience like really helped me, um, as well, like not only like obtain financially the security, but also give me inspiration in a lot of my artwork as well, meeting new people and going to new places and viewing the world, so to speak, as far as like the United States.
Wow. So you're from Florida.
Not originally, no. You could basically put me in a Johnny Cash song. I've been everywhere.
I
I,
love
I
it.
so I was born in Pennsylvania, but I've lived in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, and lower state Michigan, and upper right now here in upstate.
Wow. Okay. Well, I love that you said when you were doing this and you were kind of vision casting that you were projecting your thoughts to where the life you wanted to have down the road.
Hmm.
And I really believe that there's equity in that. I think that's how we get where we want to go. We have to know where we want to end up. And even if a lot of the time is spent on the journey to get there,
Hmm.
like they say, if you don't know where you want to go, you can't get there until you know where the end point, at least the goal of the end point is.
I think a lot of it has to do with believing in yourself, and just like truly like harnessing the, not just like, because I think a lot of artists, including myself, we all have doubts about our work. We go through that like self-doubt phase. Even now today, I'll ask Doug, I'll ask my fiance, I'll tell him to come in the studio. I'll say, what do you think of this painting? And I always get like, it's good. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I want someone to, like, when I create something, I get like and this immersive, like, explosive feeling. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's like the energy coming out onto the canvas, and me being gay, I never really was a boisterous kind of, like, coming,
Yeah.
I was always like like talkative when you got to know me, but quiet usually, and an observer. And the only way I could, like, actually be an activist in my own voice in my own way is on the canvas. It's the one place where I can actually, like, say what I want to and not give a damn,
Yeah.
and like, and that's what I guess if there was I guess a style or what I'm reaching for my art, that would be it. It's just my voice.
That sounds great. And I get what you're saying, but I got to tell you, it could be worse. my my husband has and he's amazing. He's got this habit of telling me his honest opinion no matter what. And sometimes I just want
That's
him
good.
to go, I know, it's great, right? I just want him to go, "Oh, it looks amazing." And sometimes he'll go, and I'm like, "Really?" And he
Yep.
and the worst part is most of the time he can't tell me why he doesn't like something or why he thinks it's like meh. He'll just go, something's off, but I can't really tell you why. And I'm like,
Oh,
dude, that is not acceptable. I
that's not
want,
helpful.
yeah, if you want to go, it looks great. I like the direction. Like now I'm teaching him how to actually give me a review. And I'm like, well, that's not a true review, right? But I'm like, tell me what you like about it. And then tell me what's not working specifically. I'm like, is it the angles of the lines? Is it the weight of the shape? Like what? And he's like, I don't know. It just doesn't look right. And then he'll leave, and I'm like, or he'll go, it looked better. You should have left it the way it was. I'm like, oh, and I'm like, why do I ask? But I need him to tell me these things. I need his feedback.
Right.
I need the honesty, but I don't like the honesty if they don't know how to tell you what they don't like. It's so frustrating.
Right. Doug will do the either it's good, or I'll be like, I have to, like, I'll be like, okay, what do you think about this specific area of the canvas that I'm
Okay.
currently working on? And then Doug will do this thing where he'll be like, he'll look at another part of the canvas and go, but why is the eye crooked?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then
I
I'll
didn't
be
ask
like,
you about the eye,
yeah, yeah, right. And I'll be like, please just focus.
we
Right.
just,
He'll just,
oh, yeah.
so I get like, I get, sometimes it's like really good, his feedback, because it helps me, but in other ways it just agitates me a little bit, and I'm like, oh, why'd you say that? Now all I can look at is that eye that's crooked,
Yeah.
you know?
Now you can't unsee it. Yeah. My husband did that the other day. And I asked him, I tried to do what you said. And I asked him specifically, like, what do you think about this? I just fixed it. And he's like, oh, that looks fine. But the mouth. And I'm like, no, I do not want, I'm not doing this. And he's like, well, it just looks, and he had some specifics that actually I did not take well. The way he put it
All
was
right.
not kind. And I'm like, oh, this is so painful. Why do I do this? But then I went in and I fixed the mouth because then I can't leave it alone. And he made the painting better. But yes, for a very short period of time, I wanted to shake him really hard. Yes. So tell me now, what, talking about this incredible story of where you came from and how you've gotten to the point you're at,
Hmm.
how does your art fit into your life now and work with what you're doing for income? Do you have the side hustle? How much art are you able to do? How do you schedule it?
Right now I'm a full-time truck driver. As far as, like, my money, I always say I truck drive for the tubes of paint. So it's what funds the art. So, and which leaves me able to be comfortable in things like pricing and things like that, like being comfortable with my price and not backing down from those things, because I have the financial security of being a truck driver, that I don't have to, I'm not belly hungry, so to speak, for to sell the work as much. Um, that's a good thing, but that's also, it could be a bad thing too. But I basically work full time as a truck driver, and then as soon as I get off work, I'm painting. So every spare time that I get, it's done painting. And it's like I said, small baby steps. So soon I'm going to be taking a full-time position at work, and I'm going to be um, being a seasonal driver. So I'll work during the winter months, and then I'll be off during the summer months. So I can take my art around the country and go to fairs and things like that, and try to find a gallery, so to speak, that would be more than happy to have my work inside and different states and stuff like that.
That works really well. And you've been all over. So you'll have a knowledge of where probably would be a good fit for you.
So yeah, like Seattle, Chicago, things like that would be like an area where I'm wanting to attack. I'm still honestly like I don't know where my art fits into any specific kind of category. That's why like you mentioned talking about a abstract reality. And that kind of fits in with me. That's what I would consider my style. So I have this like theory, it's a running theory. So it's like it goes and it changes too. So I believe that true art comes from children, and I believe that like because before society um changes an artist and tells them like you should do this or you should do that, or learning things and growing, yes, but also you're losing something. There's an innocence to a child's work that they don't really care. They don't care about the color or what they're, what I mean, they're just free and total relaxation and zen when they're in that moment, and they love what they're doing, and I've seen some work from my own son that like blew me away, and I was like wow, and that's what I try to harness in my own work, is trying to see the world through a child's eye basically, and I'm trying to like go back to that when I'm forever like trying to like view the world in shapes and distorted figures and things like that. I'm always trying to like twist it in any way that I can.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I know what you mean about that with the raw innocence and immediacy of a child's drawings. I have my kids' drawings around me that are from, I mean, a whole span of years, but the ones I like the best are the ones when they were just learning to hold a crayon,
Hmm.
and they're so pure. And an adult can mimic a child's art. Like I could try to literally recreate my child's art and it's still not going to feel the same, but I love that, and I still try to put that into my work on some level, although I think you get a lot closer to that naturally with your style than I do, but I see the value in that, and I know exactly what you're talking about, that connection.
Hmm. I really um I really admire like the growth of my son's work. So I kept a sketchbook from when he was like 3, and I always have him fill them up until now. So he started drawing like these stick figures, right, when he was like 3, and like he was trying to put fingers on it too. So I thought that would be fast at the age of 3, and I was like, wow, that's really good to like most kids like what I mean, when you try to like put things in a 3D kind of like setting at the age of like 5. I was like, and he's doing this all on his own. I'm not telling him to do anything, and I'm not, enforcing anything on him at all. And I don't want to. I want him to be able to draw for the sake of drawing, and like be totally free in that. And I think that's what I want. I want a full-time career in art, but I also want to be totally free.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do that. We envision the part that we like or we're really addicted to right in the midst of our creative storm where we're just plugged in. I basically liken it to like the aliens beam me up. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time. I can look up and it'll be dark out,
Oh
and
my God.
I'm like,
Same.
what? How? Like my husband will come in and be like, it's like I just got beamed back, and I'm
Yeah.
like, where am I? And I just,
Yep.
it's really, it's a little scary, but I
When do
don't,
you
I
start?
don't care.
What time do you have a time that you start in your studio?
I've had different artists and friends tell me they have styles where they can just jump in, jump out, do an hour here, an hour there. I know myself, I cannot get anywhere near my easel when we're going somewhere or I'm expected to be doing anything other than be completely submersed in that painting for less than like 2, 3 hours.
Right.
So I aim for solid blocks of like, usually I paint from 4 to 8 hours at a time. And I try to take meal breaks, but I'll get to the point where I'll forget to eat. So
Same.
it's a very obsessive thing.
Oh yeah. I always said there
Um,
should be like an AA for artists.
I don't
Like
want to, you know what?
like a recovery center that we
I
can
don't
all
want to
go to.
recover. I just want
Well,
I
me
just want to
neither.
stay there. I just want
You
somebody to
know?
bring me like an IV so I can keep going.
Yeah, I know. Uh, if I wake up at it's strange. Like if I get at least if I get a 6 to 8 hours of sleep and I'm off work, like on the weekends, it's really like this. But I really try to. If I wake up at like let's say I wake up in the middle of the night at like two in the morning, because usually truck driving for me starts at that time.
Yeah.
I'm at work at 2 in the morning and I'm off usually by 2 in the afternoon. So I have from 2 in the afternoon to when I go to bed to paint, right? So I'm usually on the weekends, I'll wake up at 2 or 4 and I'll be in the studio immediately. I won't make the choice to go back to bed. I'll just go in the studio. And then
Yeah.
as soon as I'm in there, like you said, like it takes about 20 minutes to get into that like Zen state of mind. And like once you're in it, you're kind of locked and like the time goes like so quick and I look at my artwork and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even like do that much, or it felt like that at least. And I'm like, I time just like goes on and on and on, like, and I don't even see it going. I don't see it,
Yeah.
especially up here where it's like bright and lit outside most of the day, and like it's
Oh
nine
yeah.
o'clock at night and it's still lit outside, and
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
like
what am I?
Alaska.
I'm like, what is going on here? I feel like I have a long day, but it's really not.
It's great though. And
Yeah, I
when
love it.
I learned a long time ago to paint when the urge strikes. And I say paint for the rest of our audience, whatever your art is, whatever your fix. Uh, for me, I used to paint in the attic when I was in college, and I would wake up in the middle of the night
Hmm.
and I couldn't go back to sleep and I'd be thinking about that painting. And finally, I just started giving into it. And my poor dad at the time, um, the bathroom was right on the other side of the attic stairs, but it was that kind of fold down stairs that would make a
Hmm.
lot of noise with the big springs. And
The
so
creaky.
it's 2 a.m. It's usually when I would wake up and it would go chung, and I'm like trying to open this door. And so I would just leave it there and I'm up
Hmm.
painting at my easel and he's up now. It's like 6 a.m. and I hear him and I'm thinking, like, can he even get like he had to duck around this? It basically blocked the door. I don't know if he was on like all fours trying to.
It's funny you mentioned that because we have a walk up. It's stairs that get to the attic, and
Yep.
I'm going to be redoing that for my studio in my house. So I'll be up in an attic pretty soon. It's a large space. This right here that I'm currently in is our master bedroom, and
Mm-hmm.
like Doug has given me the master bedroom for a studio, and like we have made a bedroom out of our dining room area.
Yes, that's what my husband did too. And God bless our husbands. So my husband gave the extra room in the house to me as well here. And I guess it was like a den when we moved in, but it's filled with light. It's got the big
Oh
windows.
yeah.
And I'm just really grateful that he was like, you know what? When we moved up here, he was here working and I was still in central Wisconsin with the kids. And he did a video walkthrough. It was right during COVID. And he had his phone and he walked in and he showed me a view of the windows and he said, "This is your studio."
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, we chose well, my dear.
Oh yeah. I can
Yes, we
tell you got the
did.
big windows on both sides, and I think
Yep.
it's nice.
Yep. You did a good job yourself. So I'm proud of us both. So tell me about we're talking about making time for your art. Tell me about your business plan. I know that your goal is to get to the point where you can do this probably full time or more dedicated.
Hmm.
You're selling your work online. Is that working for you? Is that new for you? What's going
It's
on with
new.
you business wise?
It's new. The selling on the whole website. I am I fail as far as like website. My Doug helps me out a lot on that front. I'm not computer savvy at all. And it's frustrating. And I think all artists, I think we get frustrated with technology and trying to like being the business side of art is like not like creative and like fun as it is to just paint, right? So um Doug helps me out a lot on that front. I am selling, yes, like it's for sale, but you can go view the artwork and things like that. But right now I'm more focused on selling me than the artwork. So if that makes any sense, I'm putting me out front because nobody knows who I am. So that's the product that's being sold is Jacob, you know, and then I'm hoping and I'm planning on making sales in the future based on like after that kind of like move. So I'm going to be soon to be working with an ad agency and possibly financing some advertisement through them and also doing like local shows every year, traveling, doing shows that way, getting my name out there because I think that's the most important thing is just introducing yourself to the world. Uh, I'm very new to the whole like where to go and like what to do and like all I know is like I have to be in my studio and paint. Like that's and time, like you said, flies. So it's like it feels like you don't have a lot of time to do any of the other things, but in reality, you do. You just have to like plan it and schedule it. And but all I want to do is paint. I wish I could just hire like somebody to take care of everything for me, and then like I can just be in the studio, and like you know what I mean. And that's what I want. I just want to paint. If that makes that as simple as it can be.
I completely get it. And I think that a lot of artists feel that way. I think most of us feel that way, even if we are doing something on the side, or even if the majority of the hours of my week are doing that other thing.
Right.
It's more the mentality of whatever I choose to do with those other hours provides me with the mental focus that I need to be able to create. And you mentioned it, you were talking about, is it, what'd you call it? Your food money?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I know when I talked to Kira Barsodi last week, we talked about um, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that had to do with when people are in survival mode, they tend to constrict on themselves back down to their basic functions. They need to have the food, they need to have the shelter, things like that. When there's no income, things get a lot more immediate. And
Hmm.
then when we're providing that base underneath ourselves, we can expand into the creative mind and
Right.
get more into that whole prefrontal cortex thing. So there are times when it makes sense to choose to have an outside source of income, whatever the hours are. It really doesn't matter as long as you can work in the ability to get that art created. So it's different for everybody.
And I'm more, I agree. And I'm more about uh as far as the art goes, I'm more about like not so much as selling the artwork as I am like people just honestly getting to see it. You know what I mean? I just really appreciate people being able to see the work and seeing my voice kind of thing. So, and the art, my art is more important than me, and it has to be, it has to be put up front and center, because when I go and I die, I want the art to live. I don't want it to be in like a random like trash can or Goodwill bin, or I want it to be protected and things like that. That's my goal. My goal is for it to be somewhere where it can just be, safe and then have a forever home basically. And that's what I'm looking for and I hope for the future.
Wow. You just made me realize that that's kind of where I'm coming from too. I think for us, in a lot of ways, I wonder if other artists are out there thinking the same thing, is that our art, it's like there are our creations are our babies, and we're thinking about what's going to happen to them when I'm gone. who's
Right.
who's going to love them? So yeah, it has a lot to do with legacy, but not as much from, I think it may sound contradictory, but from an ego point of view, then that legacy of feeling like that's part of you and you want it to be cared for after you're gone, if that makes
Right.
any sense.
I would love, I know, I totally get it. And that's what I'm most afraid. I would say if I have a fear, it would be that my art would be forgotten and lost in time. And like it's not so much me. I'll find a way to feed myself and survive, right? As long as I can have a paintbrush and some tubes of paint and a canvas or a surface of any kind to paint on, like I'm good during my lifetime, right? But it's especially like you'll have a piece, I'm sure you feel this way. Like there are certain pieces where you're like, oh, that's good. And then there are certain pieces where it's like, oh, it's like like, how did I do that? You know what I mean? Like it really came together, and like you feel really good about it. And like those pieces, I'm like, oh, I hope like they get somewhere, someone takes them and protects them and forever and ever. And like that's why it's important to me to keep going and get my art out there because I'm looking for a forever home.
Yes. Amen. Well, and I think that you were talking about all the things your art means to you. And I think that even though you say it's not about you and you want to put the art front and center, it will probably be interesting to add some videos to your website that talk somewhat about the art on some level, even if it's not. And that may be something I'm curious. I want to talk about your marketing strategy and how you feel about that. If you think that that feels right to you, I'm going to be starting to do that with my own work.
Mm-hmm.
And
What do you mean?
basically, like
Talk
on,
about it.
I don't know if you've listened to anything from Marcus Sheridan, but there's an interesting interview that I did with him about marketing your art on video. And
Mm-hmm.
he talks about how his daughter made a painting and she got on video and talked about, I guess she had a painting of her making the art. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure how much she talked about it, but we talked about the equity in getting on video and talking about the meaning of that piece for you and how much you should explain a piece of art. And what I found is that some people really want to know, and it can really bring uh, interest to your work from other people when they can get to know what that painting is about, even if it's just a little bit, and that's really something people hunger for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, what I would do is probably provide some kind of overview of the art meaning for me, and then an actual more in-depth video. And if people want to know, I can put spoiler alert, only watch this if you really want to know, because some
Mm-hmm.
people don't. They just want to know. They know what it means to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, what is your marketing strategy for your art? And do you think you would ever get on video and talk about your art per piece on your website? Do you think that has any value for marketing?
I actually was thinking about putting some videos on my website specifically that would talk about the art itself, little Easter eggs, so to speak. And but right now I do that exact thing on Instagram. So on my Instagram, I'm always like telling my audience about, what's going on in the piece, where I am, and what it's about, and what it means, and things like that. I'm always like explaining, like, or even if I just like figure it out, because I'm more of a process kind of painter, but I actually like to think of myself as like the in between kind of person. So, and I'll explain that in a bit, but I find that when something like really works in the painting, I'm looking at this painting over here because it's like really working, and then like, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't notice I was doing that, and then like, but I was, and I was like, I put the pieces together, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, and then I have to like tell people about it. So I'll get on Instagram, and I'll be like, I just figured something out, and like, and I have to like, I'm excited to tell everybody, and then like, I'm not good with like a camera or like you get camera shy or things like that. So and I don't like the sound of my voice on a phone or anything like that either. So, but I post it, and I'm just truly excited about the like the whole process. I like the surprises that you get along the way. And but as far as marketing, I love putting things online on Facebook, getting going to events and passing out like flyers, things like that. I like going to local coffee shops and like seeing if they can just put my artwork up for even if it's a week, put it up there to get people's their eyes attached to it. So right now I'm trying to get into a candy shop up here called Donkers. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's up in Marquette, Michigan, and I'm trying to get my painting, the one with the lollipop. I think I sent you. I'm
Yep,
trying to
that's a
get
perfect match.
and I'm trying to get that into the candy store, so to speak, because I think it's great for that sort of environment. And like that's like it's just me trying like little new things, and I'm like I said, I'm still new at it. So
So, yeah, I think that's a great alignment to do the candy store. I love how
hmm
you're thinking creatively and thinking about different venues on different levels, whether it's handing out flyers or looking for a place to hang the piece, even if you're not expecting or looking to sell it in that place.
Right.
Where is a good alignment to get it in front of eyes, to get people aware of you?
Hmm.
And one of the things I love about your work is there are so many levels to your work. I mean, you've got the playful level, you've got the satirical level that I think is present in a lot of the work where you're making a commentary, and it's definitely something more serious, and you've got a view. It's not just random. And then there's like a little bit of a dark layer sometimes in there. It's kind of like this little undercurrent,
Right.
where you're struggling with something internally. At least this is my view of your work. It's got like at least 3 layers, I think, per painting.
It's very thick in layers. But
And it's interesting. There's a lot to
I
be able to say about it.
okay, like the painting, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it behind me? The one right here, up in this area right there.
Yep.
Okay. So like that painting, that came from like I listened to, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a critic. He's a Jerry Saltz. Have you ever heard of that name?
No, I'll look him up.
Oh my God, he's funny. Uh and just a lot of things I disagree with, but that's normal. But anyways, I really like listening to him. And he started talking about these caves, the cave wall, the art inside the caves, the very beginning of where it all started, you know,
Yes,
and like
Lascaux.
he was like, this is like this is like real art. This is like the earliest forms of like man. How they studied animals and human beings, and I was very interested in that, and at least in theory. And I was like, well, what's a cave for me? And I was like, I think graffiti art is. I think graffiti art is the cave of our time. And like it's like an urban setting, and like people would draw on the walls and on buses. It doesn't matter, trains, and I was and they're voicing their opinion. And so I was like, man, I got to make this like so in the on that painting, you'll see like the red on the side of it. So, and then the rest of it would be the cave, right? And then the figure behind it is kind of like moving the cave. And then what's behind it is modern art. So he's moving it to see another painting. So behind that is just a solid red painting. And that's where we are today. But where we were was in this like, and I put my handprints on there to symbolize that this is a cave wall. And then I have like this honorable mention for Keith Haring there, looking down on his phallus and screaming, because during that time you had AIDS in the 80s, because that's where graffiti came from, the 70s and 80s, and um, there was a lot of sexual confusion on that topic. Even gay people were afraid of sex and their own bodies, and even it goes round. It's just heterosexuals and homosexuals. We all feared it, and the media called it gay cancer and things like that. And like I think documenting, I think graffiti artists especially had a interesting way of documenting history. And they're not noticed, but I think they should be. And I went to Chicago for the first time, and I seen these subways go by with graffiti art on it, and I just couldn't help but look. You know what I mean? It's like bam in front of your face.
I love it.
You
Yep.
don't you don't have an option. You have to take it. Even the tagging, like people would say, like not the pretty pictures, but where people would just sign their name. You know what I mean? Like even if you hate that, you're still confronted with it. And I was very interested in that. So behind them, you have like this abstract kind of line going on. I don't know if you can see that with markers, and that's basically my interpretation of tagging. And then you have the train above them. I'm going to be putting graffiti art on that train, and then I do this thing where I put in these blocks. Like you can see these white blocks. This painting just started, but it's not going to be white blocks. But I do this kind of thing where I'm putting like an abstract thought in each block. You know, like maybe I'll put like a mailbox in there, you know what I mean? And like just get your eyes thinking about like how does that story connect with the overall general story of the painting. So it's still abstract even though it has a subject in it. And I like the abstract thought more than I like the actual uh visual abstraction kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot for you to talk about. I think you should keep talking about your work. And you're going to have to send us that picture when it's done so I can put that on your show notes page too.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Hold on. So there's a am I allowed to do this? Are you okay with
Yeah,
this?
whatever you want.
So there's a painting right here. Can you see that?
Yep.
So this one, if you the Abe Lincoln one,
Yep.
there's a lot of like um political, I would say like um little notes inside that painting.
Yes.
I talk about like gun rights. I talk about the vaccine. I talk about so I want to do a bunch of paintings based on like every little meaning inside that painting. So these are like these come off of that painting basically, and this is about gun rights in a way. So you got Look Daddy. I've shot a big one, which I got from Roy Lichtenstein. Have you ever heard of that
Oh yeah.
artist? So
Yep.
he started with Look Mickey, I hooked a big one, right? So I put like a hashtag up there and you can barely see the word shot, but it's inside the hashtag. And it it could be read as Look Daddy, I've hashtagged a big one, or Look Daddy, I've shot a big one, or even in a sexual way, it could be read of Look Daddy, I have a big one,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? And like, I think that's important. Someone pointed that out to me and they were like, you should take that away or and like I was like, no, I don't think I want to now that you pointed out. I think it's great because, you know, when it comes to guns and things like that, people aren't talking about like why people are getting hold of guns and doing violent things. And I think sexual abuse is one of those things, and it should be talked about more. So people should be aware of those things. And I think that's great. If you see that in the painting, I think that's awesome that you've seen that. And I want to keep it there. I want your mind to be fixated out. And then I add these like I don't know. I'm not going to put the camera back on it, but I add these like little things like a pack of cigarettes and is in the painting and the collar to a priest. There's a lot of sexual abuse in churches and things like that where people don't talk about those things. And like, but that's the abstract thought, right? So the cigarettes are more of like this vision of like masculinity and history, like where men would have the cigarettes and they would roll them up in their sleeves and like it's a playing with gender roles basically in this painting, like feminine and masculine sort of like objects. And then I have like the Van Gogh flowers, the sunflowers at the bottom, and like uh it's like juxtaposed with the figure on the side with the green toy soldier. And like this is one of those moments where I was like really excited because Van Gogh, he's known for like using like primary colors and being very like his perspective in his work is really awesome. Like the way he like you can see depth without any shade or really deep shading or anything like that. You can still see it. There's a play on that. And like I was like, wow, I'm really doing kind of the same thing. It kind of happened that way. But in the flowers, I'm using a bunch of yellow. But before I did the vase with Van Gogh, I did the toy soldier and I did yellow ochre in the background. I was like, is this color right? Like I questioned it, right? And then like when I did the vases with the flowers, I was like, it's perfect. Like it's like I'm gonna turn it again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know you're gonna
You
have to send a picture of this one too.
Oh yeah. So I was like, they're like playing off of each other. You know what I mean? Like the
Yes.
colors. It's sort of the same setting. And then those two figures right here are playing as well with the background that's behind them. You know? And then I have sort of like this left-sided issue with gun rights and this right-sided issue. So I have the deer up there that's pointed right there with and like the argument can be said that like guns aren't used for violence. Guns are used for hunting and survival, and you know what I mean. And like it's a deep-rooted uh, American tradition to have a gun, and I try to play on not just the liberal side of the issue, but also the conservative side as well, because we all have a voice and an opinion on things, and it's not fair for me to ignore the voices of others. So. I like the Lincoln painting. That painting, I tell people, I have a lot of people look at it and they're like, yeah, those no, the liberals are getting away with everything, or they'll be like, oh yeah, the conservatives are, and then it's always, and I'll be like, if I didn't paint this, I painted this for everybody, not just one side. You know what I mean? So if you think the painting's for you, you're wrong.
And if you
It's
think the
for
painting is for you, you're right.
all right. It's for everybody. I paint it. I want people to like confront uh the opposing side of their political nature and like try to come to terms with the other side and try to like work together, because I think that's what's missing is that we don't talk enough to each other and try to like learn, because I think you can learn a lot from talking to the other side.
So your paintings really are kind of three-dimensional in a way. It's like they say if you go too far in one direction, you come back around to the same point.
Right.
And it seems like when people get too extreme on either side, they get more similar. And your paintings really are about integration.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So I was just curious how you get to your pricing, because our listeners would probably be curious how you value,
Well,
how do you do it?
well, first, I think to myself, I was like, this is a new career, even though like I've been like painting for as long as I can remember, drawing. Um, I try to think of it as like where did I start off making and any other job in my life and what paid the bills, like what kind of like yearly salary. And like I was like, well, I got to make at least this amount to survive, right? Per year. So I I I said, okay, well, I'm gonna price it based on that. So I was like, well, what would fit for that? So I was like, well, I price it by 3.4 times a square inch. That's what that my paintings are, and they come out to be around 10,850 for these 5 foot by 4 foot kind of thing. And I'm comfortable in that pricing because I feel like it's fair for me first, and really fair for whoever buys it because my name's not out there. So I that's how I basically arrived at it. I from a real world perspective of like trying to just survive and live.
Well, and I love that you said earlier that having your current work that you do driving enables you to set your prices where you feel they need to be without negotiating the prices down against yourself. Some people will bargain their prices down
Hmm.
to a client. They'll knock their own prices down just because they're so self-conscious, or God forbid, desperate that they've got to make a sale. And
Right.
so it is an interesting and valid point that for you, and currently for me as well, having another source of income does provide that stability where you don't feel that you have to really justify your pricing.
Right. I also tack on any additionals. So the painting itself is 3.4, but I also put on like if I go get it framed, I double the price of the framing because it's more than just getting the frame, like making that purchase. You're taking your own time and selecting the frame, so to speak. And I don't just like get it done. I actually partake in like going to see the process of it. So I'm like very much into getting everything settled. It's all like mapped out for me in order like to make sure it looks really cohesive and nice. So your time is precious, and it's probably the most important thing that you don't realize. That's like so I tack on I whatever so if the frame is 800, I put it's 1,600 on top of the total price. So any additional kind of thing, if I have to travel, let's say I map my miles, and I charge for like per mile, like what would what I mean, like I'm just thinking realistically, and then I put that on it as well. Um, I These are quite large paintings, so I have to do things to keep them safe during that process. And like nobody would get free shipping basically on something this large. There's things that you have to do in order to keep them, safely arrive at a destination. So anything that's like extra outside of just having the bare canvas, right, it has to be on top of that price. It has to, because you're not paying yourself for that time. So, and I think that's important that you have to do that.
I think that's extremely important. I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I include that in my advice as well, within my formula, where I say, when it comes to the time element of an hourly amount, whatever the hourly amount is, I recommend tracking your time so that you can give people estimates if they want something created, and B, so that you are aware of your overhead. For instance, if you go to ship something, track your time, not only your mileage to the shipping place, but track your time. You had to take an hour out of your day, maybe, like you said, that you can't get that back. And tell me now, you said examples say $800 to frame your paintings.
Hmm.
Do you frame them all ahead of time, or do you wait until you have a buyer and ask them, do they want a white
I
frame,
frame them
gold
as soon as
frame?
they're done.
You do. Oh, to
Yes.
what you feel is. So
Yes.
you're not worried about matching someone's house. You're saying,
No.
I'm making this frame for this piece of art.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so that's overhead for sure.
Yeah, is part of the piece. So, and they're all white framed, regardless. I think it's just it's it's part of me. So the framing is very important. I think it ties in. It's like the blanket on the bed, you know, and it's very important to have the blanket on the bed, you know. I think that the artist should be the one to choose. I have free, like I said, I want to be totally free in my art, and like if they're I don't know. I feel more comfortable in selecting the frame, and if I think that a frame, the wrong blanket could look wrong on the bed, you know, and then, like it could throw the painting off, you know, and I just don't want that to ever happen. And I think the best for me, white frames do my paintings justice very well.
I like that. Okay, so talk to me about your creative process. I mean, I'd love to hear about how, for instance, we talked about how many layers there are in each piece, right? And there's so much
Hmm.
going on, and each one really is an integration of, in a lot of instances, opposing views of a
Hmm.
particular subject. How do you work out your paintings ahead of time in a sketchbook? Do you have a methodology for? Do you just wake up in the night with an idea for a painting, or like how do you do this?
Can I say all of the above?
Yes,
Yeah, because all of the above, but my process is I'm leaning into the computer like an old person, like you can't hear me. Like,
yes.
can you hear me? Anyways, I have this. I'm trying to look for it around the room. Anyways, but you'll know what I'm talking about. I have an iPad, and they say that in order to make a masterpiece, which that's up to the public to view whether or not you're doing that. But one day I hope to achieve that sort of like goal. And they say it's all planned out. In order to make a master, you have to plan. You know what I mean? There's like a whole bunch of like do's and don'ts in this. But I don't necessarily believe in that like 100%. So I do what I call the in between. So I'm very process oriented, but I'm also the other side as well. So what I do is I start out making what I like to call an ugly drawing. So this is just a quick, like, when you're like, just, you don't think about it. You're just like, just sketching really fast, getting the idea onto the paper, basically. And sometimes my drawings come out looking like a kindergartner did it. And I'm like, I don't care, but the idea, I know what it is. So, then I take that drawing and then in my head, I try to render it even a little bit better on the canvas, right? And then as I'm going through my process and I'm putting the paint on there, I take my iPad and I take a picture of the painting, and then I go on Procreate, which is a thing on your iPad that you can use, and then I work in like what I want and where I want it from the iPad, and then I use that as a reference, and then I put that on the canvas, and then if I don't like that or the direction it's going, I take another picture of that, and then I use that new picture as a reference, and then I'm constantly moving and changing, and I can put acrylic paints allow you allow you to like block in, like, so if you don't like something, you can just totally take it out, so I that's basically the process. And
Wow.
so that's, I don't know if that made any sense, but that's basically what I do.
Wow. I like that. I think that that's fascinating. And I think our listeners are going to start checking out those things, and look into Procreate, for instance, on an iPad. I know my son's been talking about getting an iPad. He is designing skateboards right now. He's still in college, but he's interested in having a skateboard design business.
Oh yeah.
So he's looking at getting an iPad. And I mentioned your work to him. I'm going to be showing him, you
Yeah.
know, your website and all of your stuff.
Maybe I
So
could put one of my designs on a skateboards.
yeah, he would probably love that.
And I also have time, like during my creative process, I make sure that my son, my 10-year-old son, I have him in here as well. I have him do at least 30 minutes of like free drawing, right? So I'll give him like a something to draw. And I'm a big proponent, even though like you'll see like these mystical kind of like things, the thing that's like makes you better as an artist, I believe, is like painting things that you see. Even though you don't like necessarily enjoy it as like if you're like more of an imaginative kind of like artist, like you because that's me. I draw from like my head and my imagination. uh I found that like if I go and I literally I sit and I make myself draw something I see, I find that the more imaginative work progresses. So I dive into both sides of the field, you know? And I feel like you progress a lot if you just do things that are like uncomfortable for you. I like I'll dabble in everything, cartoons, it doesn't matter. So I have my son come in here and he has this like little project and like right now we're working on here, I can show you. We're working on like roses. So I drew this right here and like he drew these.
Wow. How
Yeah,
old is he
yeah,
now?
he's 10.
He's 10.
He drew these. He actually drew this right up here and he drew these two right here.
Wow.
And I traced over them with the marker, right? Because his lines were very, very loose. And I was trying to show him that like he was doing because he was getting depressed. He was like, I'm not doing a good job. And like he was down on himself. And like I was like, no, you're really doing a great job. And I was trying to show him that his lines actually connect without him kind of like thinking about it. I was like, here, let me show you how your lines were connecting. And like so it's like a little bit of me, a little bit of him, sort of. But I wanted him to know that he was doing a great job. He just didn't see it.
Wow. And loose is good. I mean, I think most of us, we endeavor to get loose and stop being restrictive with our artwork. So
Oh yeah, because
if he's
it
got
looks
that,
when you're tight, that's why like behind me immediately see this abstract kind of thing and like uh, I do more loose abstractions and I when I feel the moment I feel too tight in my work, like when I'm trying to like paint something specific and I want it to be like really good, the moment I feel like too restricted, I get the canvas off the easel and I put a plain one on there and I splash paint around and I do an abstraction. I let myself I allow myself the freedom to loosen up, you know, and I that's why I don't like just doing a particular style. I love abstract work because it allows you the freedom to be loose and not have so many rules. And like you can tap into that's where the sucker for abstraction came from. You know, like I was just getting too tight in the work. I just finished Rufus the rabbit and I felt just so frustrated that my that I was just too focused and I just wanted to get it just right and all this stuff. And so after it was done, I was like, man, I gotta like, it's my way of like yoga in a way. I gotta stretch, I gotta like dance. And the only way you can dance is just put the paint on the brush and like just go at it, you know? And what came out of it was that painting. And it was awesome to be able to release that, you know?
absolutely. I think that's great.
So I think every artist should practice, in my opinion, but I think every artist should practice both sides. You know, I think you know, as soon as you start feeling frustrated, get a canvas and like, or a piece of paper, it doesn't matter, and just like make scribble marks and like let your mind just go back to childhood. You know what I mean? And like see what happens because you don't really know. You don't know.
That's right. And that can be done in your sketchbook. I'm a big proponent of leaning on that sketchbook
Oh, me too.
in a lot of ways. I think for me it's really journaling, but it can be a place where you can practice both the technical things
Right.
so that you can just build up your eye hand coordination even if you're not looking to paint something that is realistic. Then when you get to that abstraction and you're feeling the pull to make a certain mark, that you're able to make the mark the way you want it, where you want it. I think you're right. It is advanced by practicing the hand-eye coordination of drawing something that is in front of you.
Hmm.
I think so.
I definitely I do the sketchbook, but I find myself getting into that trap where because my son does it too. I think he got it from me. It's the curse. But you'll take your sketchbook and you'll try to treat your sketchbook like it's the masterpiece. You know, like when you're drawing, you're
Just
like
puke
you
on
treat
it. Just
right,
I
right.
puke on the canvas.
Like sketchbooks are it's a personal it can be not personal, but to me it's a personal journal of my development.
Right.
And like it's the place that's meant, sorry, it's the place that's meant for mistakes.
Right.
It's invented for the mistakes. The mistakes are like that's what it's there for, right? It's a tool. And like you got to use it. So I nowadays when I get in my sketchbook, I purposefully try to make all the mistakes that I can.
Good. Well, it is more the sketchbook is more than a tool. It's your secret weapon.
Yeah.
It really is. And what I do is I will take things that are meaningful to me and and then I put it all in my sketchbook and I just ripped it up, crinkled it up, whatever, and just made layers in my sketchbook so that I wasn't confronting blank pages. And then whenever it struck me, I could just draw right on top of it. But it gave me that this is not a blank piece of paper, but then at the same time, it's meaningful.
Hmm.
So there were layers to just making marks, and anything that went on top of that became meaningful to me.
I see a lot of this story in that piece that you sent me over the phone. Now that
You
you're talking
do.
about it,
You
yeah, I
do.
see a lot of this, like what you're explaining, like it's your
Mhm.
journey kind of thing. I see it in that piece that you're with the dove and like, I see that, you
Thank
know.
you.
So I think it shines in that. So I think like that's it could create powerful everything in our lives, right? Sort of like puts like it's in the art. I mean,
It's all there.
yeah, it's there. But like I mean, we know that, but like other people, like if they don't know the specifics, like the story, they can't like add up to why it got to that point, right? So
Right.
I think what you're explaining, I was just envisioning the work. You know what I mean? Like as you're explaining it, and I think real good work could come out of that. You know what I mean? It has already, and I think you should like draw from that. Keep going. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like every struggle is a success. So.
Yes. I like that. Every struggle is a success. Yeah, because the journey of the struggle is building up your muscle, your
Right.
artistic voice.
Right. And I got like me, I got like down and kind of depressed a few months back. And I'm like, oh, I'm not like we all doubt ourselves, I think, as artists. And like we're not real artists or blah blah blah. And then like I was like, oh, it's not going anywhere. And I was like feeling mopey me. And I was talking to my dad and he was like, well, okay, if it's not going anywhere, he's like 5 years ago, did you have that much paint? And I said no. And he's like, okay, 5 years ago, were you able to afford to buy a 5 foot canvas? I said no. He said, 5 years ago, did you buy a house and you have a room to even paint in? And I said no. He says, well, it looks to me like it's going somewhere.
Wow. Wow.
So you don't really see, I guess, or like me, at least in my case, I didn't really see or the progression, but there is progression. It might not be where you thought it was going to be, but like it's happening. And as long as you put out the energy, I'm a big proponent on like if I send out into the world this 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 energy of I'm going to be something or I'm gonna or if you even have a specific like my art's going to be in a museum, you have those like inner like voices and you put it out there, right? And I think the world will respond. I really do. I think that if you keep telling yourself, and you believe it, that it's gonna go somewhere, and your art's gonna touch somebody or a lot of people. It will happen. It just hasn't happened yet.
Thank you. Um, there's a teaser for my episode right there. You've
Yeah.
got a lot of them. I've when you go, like I'm just listening and I'm like, there's a teaser. Because I clip those and I put them at the front of the show.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for giving me another teaser. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So this is just super motivating and inspiring. Just everything that you're saying in your outlook is really motivating to me.
Right.
And by the way, if you get depressed again like that, call me.
Okay.
Okay. Just pick up the phone, Jacob.
Yeah. I don't know. I just when I'm creating, I'm sure like you, the most important thing to me is just being able to put the color on the canvas. You know what I mean? It's not so much about like what it's going to look like as it is just letting my state of mind just flow. I love my voice is not so much as even in the figures. I love bright colors. I love having the variety of those and you know like a child, like when you're in a candy store and then you're like, oh my God, like I think what you're attracted to most of is the color of the candy, right? Like if it was all like mushy gray, like if all the candy in the store was just one gray color, like nobody would be attracted to it. It has to be like bright and delicious and like you have to like want to eat it almost. So when I look at my paintings, to me, they're like bright and delicious, and they make me want to eat them almost, you know? I want to touch them, feel them, the texture, like you said, you know? When you go inside of like studios of other people's artwork, the first thing I want to do is go up to it and see the texture. You know what I mean? And I want to like touch it. You're not supposed to. I get that. But like I want to. When I'm in the museum and I see like those little things on the painting, the cracks and anything, it doesn't matter. I instantly I want to touch it, you know? And like that's what I try to get that like I want to touch it moment on my paintings.
Wow. Yeah, you're going to have to put your stuff behind rope then, because I think it's
Yeah.
fascinating and there's so much to see up close. People are going to be getting all up in that.
Yeah. And I think when you know what we're doing, right? When we're really close, we're stealing. When when an artist is like really like inspecting the canvas, that's what we're doing. We're just a bunch of little thieves, and I think that's awesome. That's what I am. I'm like a little ninja in the night, trying to like, get my own creations out of someone else's, basically.
Well, and it's your own derivation of it. It's going to come out unique no matter what you're doing. I mean, unless you're doing an actual knockoff from a
Right.
piece to sell as a counterfeit, it's going to be a la Jacob. It's not going to be somebody else's artwork.
Right. You can be inspired by somebody. I don't think you should literally steal somebody's work. Like that would be bad. But like, I mean, obviously, but we all do it. We all look at works and we like truly get inspired by a certain. It could be a mark. It could be a color. It could be anything. It could be like the spirit of the painting. You know what I mean? And you want to capture that same sort of like moment, and like, and it could be anything. It could be, so that's what I when I say steal, I mean things like that.
Yeah, I get you.
So so okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
no, no, it's great. I'm just really glad that you're here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it took
I
a
am.
while.
It did. I know we've been working on this for a while. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And like I said, I'm jazzed. I'm completely motivated and inspired by you. So I would love for you to wrap us up with the last word and tell us your best advice for artists who want to get their work out there. They want to get recognized and seen for what they create.
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'm still trying to figure that one out. Um, I I think that the what you should do is just like I said in the beginning, I think that you should truly and honestly believe in yourself. And then the first thing you should do is just tell yourself that you are good enough, and like it will happen, and like, and put the energy out there into the world, and then believe it, not just like say it out loud, write it down, stare it out on a wall. If you have to put it, sometimes I put postage notes. I write encouraging things on the postage notes, like I believe in believe in yourself, or you are a great artist, and I put that on the window next to my easel so I can look at it, you know, and then like believe in yourself, and then like put action to your belief. So actually, make a plan to do something, whether it's putting something in a coffee shop, or asking your aunt to put it in her house, or it doesn't matter what it is. Take a step and be brave.